Startup Grind Johannesburg is being sponsored by Josie Hub. It's also being sponsored by Red Bull, and it's also being sponsored by Sir Juice. So our speaker for tonight is Brett Haggard. He's the MD and founder of htxt, Hypertext.
Indeed.
I like to call it htxt. It makes me feel cool when I abbreviate it.
No vowels, right?
Yeah, no vowels, right? So Brett will be speaking to us tonight. Guys, we will be having a Q&A session, and when we do have that, I do encourage you to take the mic, because the things that sound gets lost if we're not using a mic to be doing the Q&A section. So welcome, Brett, to Startup Grind Johannesburg.
Thank you. So, do you want to fire off some questions? Do you want me to start with a bit of background?
I actually think we should start with a little bit of background.
Cool.
Tell us about Brett, where you grew up, where are you from, Brett?
So, my family's from the Eastern Cape originally, but we spent a lot of time in Joburg, and then we moved back to the Eastern Cape, and then my folks got separated and we moved all around Joburg. So I know my way around Joburg really, really well. I know the Eastern Cape really, really well, but that's where the majority of my family stayed, and my mom and my dad decided to come to Johannesburg. So most of my adolescent and adult life was spent in Joburg. Mm-hmm. I have been, so if you walk up to me in the street and ask me what I do for a living, I generally say journalist, because it's really difficult explaining what a publisher does, and because most people think that you publish books like hard copies, hard covers and novels and stuff like that, whereas it's kind of difficult to explain how that dynamic works inside of the normal media space. And also people expect these really, really big companies when you speak about publishing houses. All right, my company is 10 people big, and we have about 5 or 6 products at any one point in time in the market. So I started out as a journalist when I was in Standard 8 at school. My folks had just got separated, and I was living with my mom, and I enjoyed playing computer games. It was my biggest passion in life, was playing computer games. And if I could have chosen a job to do for the rest of my life, it would have been to be a games tester. I just wanted to play games and tell people about games. And the only problem with that was we didn't have money. So from a necessity perspective, my mom was working at a publishing house as a salesperson at the time, and I went up and sold my abilities to the editorial team, and I said to them, everyone in this department's way too old to be playing games. I understand games. Give me games, I'll write about them, and it'll be a cool trade exchange. What happened somewhere along the way was I started getting published as a journalist in Standard 8. And I had some fantastic mentors that today, it's really, really interesting. They consider me peers in the industry, but these were people I was rocking around the newsroom in my school uniform, and they were
some names for us.
Duncan MacLeod, John Tullett, Andrew Selden, Roger Hislop, Frank Haydenreich, but he died last year. Yeah, if you look around the industry at the top guys, these were the guys that were starting out. Mm-hmm. Paul Ferber, they were starting out in the industry as journalists. Mm-hmm. And I was still in my school uniform, but I was kind of learning off of them and picking up a lot of flack from editors, so they were like helping me and teaching me how to become a journalist. So pretty much what happened, by the time I matriculated, I knew how to write a story and string a decent story together, which was really cool. So naturally what I wanted to do after that was I wanted to go and study journalism. Again, big challenge at the time, considering the fact that I matriculated in '94, and the only place to study journalism in South Africa was Rhodes. Yeah. Okay, Rhodes, like hellish expensive, far from Joburg, right? Yeah. And my mom, being a single parent, was not going to be able to send me to Rhodes. Mm-hmm. I also had crap marks in matric because I was spending way too much time buried inside computer games and telling people about how awesome they were. Mm. So I wasn't ever going to get a bursary. Okay. So my second love was tech. Mm. So I went off and studied tech. I did 1 year at Wits University. Okay. I drank way more coffee and played way more pool than what I attended lectures. I think most people that have been to university have had a similar experience.
Were you studying?
Well, at least I'd like to think that that's the story. So I was studying tech, yes, okay. Indeed. I was studying a BCom, information technology. Okay. And the really difficult thing was doing a BCom, there was all of these subjects that I wasn't interested in, and the only one I was interested in was the tech subject.
Okay.
And it was way too theoretical, and I could have told my lecturer more about the topic than. So I got distinctions for that, and I completely failed everything else. So then I went off to tech, and I joined tech, and that was much better because 90% of what I was studying was practically associated with technology. It was great. I got immersed in that.
How do you get into such an industry? Because they say as you've mentioned, you've matriculated in 1994. And at that point, I can't even say in South Africa, and correct me if I'm wrong, the tech industry wasn't even at infancy. It was non-existent from the way that I understand it. So you are going to university, you are living in a society where we encourage accounting and law and, medicine, and you've chosen information technology.
Sure.
So like, how do you, wrestle your way through all of that,
Tech was taking off at that stage. The bottom line is it was starting to take off. So the 80s was the time where we were still dealing with very rudimentary, rudimentary computers and stuff like that. The internet had just arrived in South Africa in some way, or form. We didn't have Skype or MSN Messenger or WhatsApp or any of that kind of stuff. We used to IRC. All right, so I don't know if anybody knows what IRC is, but I lost easily 3-4 years of my life to IRC. It was massively disruptive. It's these chat rooms that you log into, and the biggest problem was no ADSL. So you paid for the length of time you were connected to the internet. So my mom got these shocking phone bills, right? Because I'd 4 hours on the net, to 2 a.m. in the morning, talking crap to someone I don't know, But it was the meaning of my life at that stage. It was pretty cool. So the tech industry was really taking off, and the whole reason I wanted to study tech was because it was that new thing. It was the new accountancy. It was the new law. It was all of that kind of stuff. And there was really cool stuff going on in it, right? Every year there was cool stuff going on. We used to go to Computer Fair, and Silicon Graphics had these people dressed in suits with sensors on them, and they were dancing, and they were being mimicked on the screen. It was wow, that's, and every year computing power was literally doubling, and you could see it. So it was a really interesting thing to get into. So naturally what happened was I went off and I studied, and when I finished studying, I ended up as a network admin. Because that was the next logical conclusion, right? And 6 months into that job, I kind of realized that what was going to happen naturally inside the tech sector was I was going to become very specialized in one area. So I was going to get to know everything there was to know about networking and tech support and that kind of thing, whereas my interests were a lot wider. I would have far preferred to have known a little bit about everything than known everything about one thing. So I started freelance writing again.
How do you get into freelance writing? I mean,
you pitch hard. I mean, it's you have to kind of know what you're about, and I suppose it's got to do with any service really. You have to have a lot of self-confidence. You have to know that you're good at what you do, but you've still got to sell it. All right, and I'm still pitching today. It's the weirdest thing inside my business, even though I have 5 or 6 projects. From a profile perspective, I still write for a variety of magazines and handle their tech sections for them. So I do the tech section in Sawubona magazine, I do the tech section in DestinyMan. Occasionally I'll write some stuff for Mail and Guardian, that's more kind of music related. But then I do a podcast called ZA Tech Show. There's a variety of different things I do. And I pitched 2 magazines recently that, so one my wife picked up inside an airport lounge and gave it to me and said, they don't have a tech section. And immediately I got on the, you open up my Mac and mailed the editor and went, you don't have a tech section, you need a tech section, I'm your tech guy. So you're pitching all of the time, and it's a lot about credentials and stuff and how you come across. At least seem like you really know what you're talking about when you're pitching, right? That's really, really important, to have a clear idea of what you're selling, right? So I got back into freelance writing.
Sorry, just to cut you in, I wanted to find out, I mean, if you are starting out, like some of the local ecosystem, the members of Josie Hub are, what is a realistic timeline to be pitching? Because there is that frustration that some people unfortunately fall into, that, I've been pitching for month 1, month 2, month 3, and, there's the realistic reality, such as you've got bills to pay, there's transportation costs. So what is the timeline when your pitching is refined to such a point that, you are actually procuring the work?
Depends on whether you've got a face-to-face or a telephonic or an email pitch out. If you're pitching for funding, it's really, really difficult because the answer is don't stop with one person. All right. just keep pitching. Find new angels, find new seeds, keep pitching. And if one lands, then stop pitching. And you go, okay, great, I'm teed up with somebody. But the reality is funding is generally very difficult. So just keep pitching. If you're pitching for business, you want to push somebody for an answer. Right? So the idea is leave it for 2 or 3 days. And then stick your hand up again and go, hey, did you receive my proposal? Everything else. If after about a week, week and a half of them saying, yes, they got the proposal, but they need to get to it, and they haven't come back to you, they haven't made a decision, then say to them, look, I'm totally comfortable with you saying no at this stage. I've just got to know where you sit, right? Because a lot of people feel a bit embarrassed or a bit scared to say, no, we don't need your services or whatever the case is. So you'll find like 50% of people are just like ridiculously busy and never get around to doing anything, and the other 50% of people are just awkward like that. They won't get back to you. So it's important to kind of make the distinction between them. And I prefer the people that are just awkward because you can still push them for an answer. The people that don't get around to doing anything will keep you hanging for a really long time. But the idea is keep pitching. Don't ever put all your eggs in one basket. And I'll get into this a little bit later in terms of revenue streams and stuff like that and what we've done in our business. But cut a long story short, I got myself a job as a journalist. I left at Jonic, right? A small little unknown publishing house in the East Rand, did that for a bit. It wouldn't have been magazines that anybody have come across. It would have been Technology Update, Business Technology, Technology Dealer, really scrappy trade mags right at the bottom of the... But what I did in that process was I built up a network of other journalists. I was inside a sector and I was moving and shaking with the other journalists. So when that job reached its logical conclusion, namely the publishing company going under and me needing another job, it was really, really easy to pitch other journalists and other editors because they knew who I was. I talked a good game. They'd seen my writing in practice. And that's why it's, networking is massively important. So a very close friend of mine to this day, Charlene Carroll, was the editor of Computing SA at the time. And when she got wind of the fact that the publication went under, she phoned me and she said, listen, I need a technical editor. Are you available? I said, duh, of course. So bear in mind, this is the old days of journalism. It was scrappy. We drank a lot. We smoked a lot. We talked a lot of crap. Now I just speak a lot of crap. My job interview was 5 minutes long. All right, I walked in, I lit up a cigarette with Charlene, we talked crap for 15 minutes. She threw some magazines down on the table. She says, you know the mags? I said, yes. She said, you know tech? I said, yes. She said, can you do 8,000 words a week? I said, yes. She said, okay, cool, let's talk money. We talk money, done deal. I walked out 5 minutes later with a job. But again, that's the power of a network and understanding the people inside your network. Did that for 4 years, and then had just had it with corporate culture. Couldn't do it anymore. I'd figured out, and this was the first amazing realization of my life, that inside the corporate industry, inside the corporate space, there's generally no correlation between earnings and effort. Okay. So what happened was 1 month I would work till 2 a.m. in the morning and do the whole section myself, and they'd pay me X. And then the next month I screwed around and did nothing for an entire month, and they paid me X. And then the next month I did 50% of the work, and they paid me the same amount, and I went, okay, this model's broken. Because the problem is I want to make more money, and no matter how good I do my job or how badly I do my job, if I just keep my head down and don't draw too much attention to myself, they'll just keep on paying me the same amount of money. But I want to make more money than the same amount of money. So I resigned. And then they offered me more money, and then 2 months later I resigned, and then they offered me more money. And then the third time I resigned, I said, I'm starting to think it's not about the money.
But then, do your realities start creeping in? Because it's not about, making decisions about it not being about money when you're 20 and you don't have any responsibilities. But the older you get, it gets a little bit difficult. You've got, getting married, and you have children. You have to take your retirement annuity into consideration.
Dude, I'm 38 this year. Trust me, the same pressure is still today.
So, how do you actually, get the power to actually be making that break? Because the decisions that you are making as a 20-year-old are so different from the decisions that you're going to be making as a 27-year-old. Your responsibilities and priorities shift. I'm
not for 1 second going to say that this is the right way to do it. I'm just going to tell you how I do it. All right? And again, we'll get into the fact that after 10 years, I still classify my company as a startup. And I'll tell you about why that is. shortly, but this resonates quite strongly with that, is stop, like take a half an hour or 45 minutes, stop everything, switch your phone off, and then contemplate your absolute worst reality. All right? I have no money, I have no revenue streams coming in, all right? I've got all these gigantic bills to pay, everything else, and contemplate how you would get out of that situation, right? Dive straight into that reality and think through that reality. And sometimes you can think through it in 45 minutes or like 15 minutes. If it takes you longer, it takes you longer. But the point of doing that is, if you can figure out how to get around that reality, everything else is really, really easy. So for me, that situation, and I'm very privileged and very lucky in that, the fact that so my wife's, sitting there going, oh crap, she's going to hear this for the first time. But her mom's been really, really smart in terms of how she ran her life. She saved. She put money away. She made sure that she sorted. My mom did the same thing. All right. So for me, that is, if everything falls apart completely, right? I know that between my wife's mom and my mom, they'll be able to pay my kids' school fees, offer us a roof over our head, and feed us. All right. Outside of those three things, there is nothing else you actually need in the world, right? You need to eat, and you need to be warm. All right, and if you've got those two things sorted, then you can start moving forward from there, right? So again, think out your worst reality. Go, right, if it all falls to pieces tomorrow, what am I going to do? If you can get that right, then you can rock a startup. Then you can, then you can move forward. Then it's okay. Because then you go, well, that pressure's off. Great, cool. Now you can go conquer the world. Because if it all falls to pieces, I've got this plan. And you can move ahead with the plan, right?
Okay, so what if in your particular family structure, like with some people, they are the plan? Like you are the person who's been sent to university, you've done the average thing, you've gotten your qualification, you are the most educated person in your particular family structure, so you are the plan to be assisting with every other little plan that is not perfect. So how do you move on from that to break away from, example, corporate and start off your own thing? Because that is... So
there's this crazy amount of guilt about the fact that you should be, supporting your family and you're the one that's supposed to be the revenue stream, right? Don't worry, you're going to trade that guilt for a completely different set of guilt when you start a startup, right? Because as you employ people, you're going to start entertaining like what happens if it all falls to pieces, right? Those people, so the 10 people who work for me today are like family, right? It's the wrong way to deal with it, but it's just, again, my reality. I would really die if I wasn't able to feed those people. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm responsible for feeding 10 mouths, right? And their associated mouths, all right? Because that's the reality. So you're just going to trade that guilt for some other form of guilt. The thing is, you have to make a go of it. That's it. You just know. It's something you know. I am destined for greater things. I was destined for greater things than sitting inside of John. I'd still be an editor in Jonic if I was there. All right? All right? Drinking way too much, driving a very average car, all right, with either asthma or emphysema from the amount I'd smoke. And I would be way more cynical than what I am today. All right? So I knew that there was stuff I needed to do. I needed to, you know what, if you get it right as an entrepreneur, there is this awesome thing about standing on your own 2 feet and going, I made that. All right? The novelty does still not wear off. It's been 11 years since since I started this company. It was me when I started it, right? And it looks completely different from the day it started. But the point is, it's the same trading entity. And that first month that you make ends meet and you paid everybody and I ate and it was cool, to now, when my 10 people get paid and the tax man gets paid and Telkom gets paid and everyone else eats before me, and then like at the last point of the month, I take my money out and I turn around and there's just $2 left in the bank account. All right, and I stand around and I go, I made that. All right, that's for me a really, really cool thing. And it's been a long time since that happened for me the first time, but that's what keeps you going. It's knowing that you did that. Yes, clients paid you money for what you did or whatever the case is, but you built this thing and you went and sold it to clients and then someone paid you money for it and then you paid other people money and then there was some left. And that happened because you did what you did. That's That's for me what blows my hair back to this day, is being able to stand around and go, I made that thing.
In relation to, because you're basically describing entrepreneurship, do you think the South African landscape is beneficial, or do you think government is aiding our young startups and our tech ecosystems and ensuring that they've got the basic support at the grassroots level to actually be getting to a point where they are able to actually just be breaking even? Do you think the support structures are there? Like, how do you put together a business proposal? This is how you sign up for a domain name, et cetera, et cetera.
So I'll answer that in two parts. Yes, the South African landscape is 100% conducive to starting businesses, because people do it every day. And it's easier now than what it used to be, right? And people like me did it, all right? And there's a lot of people, droves and droves and droves of people that did this. So yes, you can do it, and yes, you can start a business up. Is it beneficial? Is it welcoming? Is it a cakewalk? Hell no, right? Policy all the way down to the legal requirements, to the red tape, to the bureaucracy that's associated with starting a business is a dog show, right? I'm going to give you two contrasts, all right? In fact, I'll just give you one. Look at Israel, all right? And a disclaimer, I'm not Jewish. I have no family that lives in Israel. But Canada is another clear example. There are places all over the world where this kind of thing is going right, where the government stopped and said, we're going to pay, we're actually going to make the lip service, the whole like, the SME is the engine of our economy. We're actually going to make that work, right? And what they did was they made it easy to start businesses. They made it cheap to start businesses. They put government assistance in place in terms of these structures and stuff like that. They wrote documentation. They put it on the internet. They did things like tax breaks, all right? For the first 2 years, you don't have to pay tax in some of these places, right? Because they want you to form a business. They want you to, make so much money in the first 2 years that your business is viable at the end of that 2 years. And if you've done really, really well in the first 2 years, you'll pay more tax after that, right? I mean, there are examples of places where this absolutely works. And again, you look at Israel, people don't go and find jobs when they come out of university. They go make startups. They invent stuff. They take existing models and manipulate them and fiddle with them and stick them out. And that's how things change, right? And that's not to say that they make great successes of it, all right? Like having a startup and being an entrepreneur is like all about failure. In fact, you're going to fail. You're going to fail all the time. All right? It's like a daily thing that you deal with.
It's like a daily break.
Absolutely. It's just, you just got to be stupid or resilient enough to like not let it bother you.
And what was your first earliest and biggest failure? Like, can you take us through like a model where you thought this cannot fail, this is it, this is my big break? Because I mean, you have said, like generally speaking, you pitch yourself, and you get to the point that you say, you know what, I've refined my pitching process to such an extent that, I've got this now. And then you pitch it, it's finalized, it's there, and then it poofs, disappears.
I'll give you a couple of examples, a couple of big mistakes I've made. So the first one was like overselling and like with absolutely no concept of delivery. Okay, that happens when you're good at sales. You sell, and then one day somebody says, cool. And then there's that whole analogy about the dog that caught the bus, the bulldog that caught the bus, right? And honestly, the first big project I landed, because I was in freelance writing. So what happened was, somebody needed some stuff written, whether it was a website, a press release, an article, a piece of brochureware, a piece of copy for an advert on the radio, whatever. They'd phone me and I'd quote them, and then I'd make the words and then they'd pay me. It was a very simple equation. But what happened was that doesn't scale. So when I got too busy to do it on my own, I hired another person, and what happened was that doesn't scale, because you've got to pay them. And the margin you make is razor thin, right, on having a second person, because they also want to make money. So you move up the food chain, and what you want to do is you want to start publishing. So you start doing projects, right? Now, I know a designer, and I know this guy that can sub, and we all get together, and then I go and I pitch, right? And we go, okay, cool, we want that project. So I didn't do that. I just knew that we wanted the project. I didn't have the network of people yet that were freelancing. So you go and you sell and you sell and you sell, and somebody goes, okay, cool. And now you have this 200 grand project and no idea to deliver. Do not do that, right? It sucks. Because you're going to lose a week's worth of productive time, right? Figuring out how the hell you're going to deliver on it. And the problem is you're already on a tight deadline because that's why they gave it to you. So now you're having to do it in half the time, not just 2/3 of the time before. So that's the first mistake I made. Right, the second mistake, and I alluded to it just now, is think about scale, know how you're going to scale, all right? Go through that process and just at least go down that road. I was 5, 6 writers big inside my business, only selling words when I realized this model doesn't scale. Okay. When I had 4 people working for me and I was working as hard as the day I started my business, and I was making less money because I had staff now and I had offices and I had all of these other things. And I had the double bonus of cash flow to deal with. So what happened was people wouldn't pay, but I still needed to pay people. So that's thing 2. Thing 3 is don't wait too long to figure out what your revenue models are. So this is another thing. So I've burnt money in my time.
Like, I mean,
so revenue model is where the money comes from.
Okay, yes.
Simple, where the money comes from. I do something for someone, right? Or they buy my product, or they advertise on my platform, or I write some words for them and they give me money in return. So it's really just like income.
When you're actually putting together your revenue model, you're a freelancer, you're starting out, like some people here, for example, how do you place your services at such a point where you're still profitable, but also at the same time you're showing your client what is the benefit of them signing with you, then a preferred supplier that's already a big corporate that already has established ties, and also at the same time, how with your pricing model, right? If your pricing model is say 10% less than the big guy, how do you convince like a client that, you know what, I'm still giving you value for money, the value proposition for this is quite high, therefore I'm not going to be charging you 10 cents for this, I can charge you 10% less than what Tom, Dick and already established X, Y and Z are charging?
So the first part, you asked 2 questions here. So the first part is, how hungry are you? Right. When last did you eat? This is really important, okay, because if you have no money, okay, and you have no food, anything is better than nothing, right? So know that. But also, don't let the whole pride thing get in there as well. It's a very delicate balance. Know where to pitch yourself, all right? Know where your discount structures are and stuff like that. So sit down and actually work out what it costs you to do that thing. All right, the number of hours or whatever the case is. And don't go industry average is X, Y, Z. Okay. We'll get into, so that's in the second part of my answer. But know what it physically costs you. Know what you need to make on a monthly basis. Know how much productive time you have. Know that if you need to make 5,000 Rand a month, you need 5 jobs of 1,000 Rand, and you assess it as you go along, right? Look at the number of hours and kind of break it down like that. But again, it's going to depend on how comfortable you are from a financial perspective. If, you know, and this is the irony of it all, right? If you're doing great and the billings are coming in and that's fantastic, right? Charge more, absolutely charge more, because you've got the ability to do that, okay? If the converse is happening, you need to make sure that you get revenue in, right? So that you can eat, because money is very closely related to the whole eating thing. But also know that price is not in any way trade-offable. I'm a journalist, we invent new words all the time, for quality. So still always keep your quality levels really, really high. Make sure that your product is absolutely at its peak. You will always deliver a consistent level of service, or the quality of your product will be there. Because if it's really, really cheap, but not not what the person wants, they're not even going to pay the cheap price for it. So know that there's a bit of a balance there. And then, like I was saying, in terms of figuring out what your rate should be, Google. All right, and so from a freelance journalist's perspective and creative's perspective, there's a number of sites, a number of bodies that have been formed that are constantly lobbying for this is what the baseline rate should be in the industry. In my experience, publishers never pay what the industry rate is, me included. It just doesn't happen because there are always people that'll do it for less, right? And from our perspective, when we're buying those resources in, we're trying to figure out where that quality and cost line meets.
Yeah.
But if you're starting out on your own, it's a really, really simple thing to figure out. How much do I need to survive? Then break it down and figure out what you need. Okay. Don't go chase the one big job. Okay, because you spend so much time selling that one big job that you won't get to anything. Take lots of little things. Yeah?
And what if that big job is being dangled in front of you? Because I mean, if you've got a huge corporate approaching you, you want to give all.
Absolutely do it. Know that in terms of, and again, it's understanding what you can legally do and not do from a tax perspective and all of that kind of thing. Know that you can't derive more than 80% of your income from a single source. All right. If you want to pay tax in your private capacity. If you earn more than 80% of your money from a single company or an entity, they need to pay tax on your behalf. And that sucks because they're just going to blanket, they're not going to take any deductions into account, they're just going to go smack, done, right? So the thing is, try and find out if they've got more than one billing entity. That kind of works too, right? And get them to pay you 250% out of. You should also, I think, generally speaking, and my accountant will probably correct me on this, get a good accountant, that's also important, or someone that knows how this stuff works. You should have 3 income sources, generally speaking. So then you can play between it. And the reason you do that is if you're on your own, you get to deduct rental and your car and your cell phone and your food and like literally everything off so that you earn 500 Rand a month, which puts you well below the threshold for being taxed. So, okay.
Okay, fantastic.
Did I answer?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
You did answer the
Sorry.
You know, in terms of like the development of the tech industry here in South Africa, like the current youth now, the born frees, do you think that what they are contributing in terms of like technology, entrepreneurship, and marrying the two, is it of value, or is there still a lot of training and development that needs to be done from government's perspective and also from someone like you who's been in the industry for more than 10 years? You know, the 10 years we can just account for you being on your own, but there's another 10 years where you had all of those learning curves. So what is your perspective on that?
So yes, it's absolutely of value. I think it's two mutually exclusive concepts here. It's absolutely of value. If you're making stuff that solves problems, it's of value. It's that simple, right? And I think we're sitting in a fantastic situation at the moment where tech is more accessible than what it's ever been. Bandwidth is cheaper than what it's ever been. Bandwidth is better than what it's ever been. Don't look at me like that, believe me. I come from a place where, does anybody remember the US Robotics 56K Sportster modem? Okay, I rest my case, right? Right? Exactly. So these kinds of things, right? The internet is cheaper and more accessible than what it's ever been. Tech is cheaper and more accessible than what it's ever been, all right? So it's easier, right? And what people are building has of massive importance, specifically if it's locally focused. And this is the other thing. It's like all of if you're going to want to sell out one day and make like millions and millions of dollars, not rands, you're going to want to build international products, but the products that are needed right now are local products, hyper-local products, products that help us figure stuff out. And there's always a revenue model that can be tacked onto it at some place, but it's all about getting users. And if you're offering value to people, all right, you'll get users, and then you can figure out how to monetize those users. But I think the problem is there's just not enough people doing stuff.
Okay.
Because it's difficult to get into the startup space. It's difficult to spend 6 months without an income because, I mean, it's difficult, right? Yeah. Like, how are you going to eat? Where are you going to live? All of this kind of stuff. That's why spaces like this are really important, because at least it solves some of that problem, right? But people need to build more stuff, all right? And that, I think, is a hampering factor. I think government is not helping at all.
But you say that.
But there are things afoot that are going to sort it out, right? So I mean, there are things that at least the talk is really, really positive right now. So there should be stuff in the pipeline over the next several years that's going to make that easier to happen. But it's still going to be tough. Know that it's going to be tough. I've been doing this for a long time. It's tough every day. It sucks. Okay. I was saying, I was saying to Sam earlier when we were chatting. It's like, there are days when I look at my friends that I was at school with that sold out, man. They sold out. They went and got jobs at corporates, and they have to wear suits and ties for a living, and they have a boss, and that, all of that stuff. And they've done way better than me, right? And I started my own business, okay? And my life is way more difficult. I make more difficult decisions every single day. The end of the month always sucks because you've got to hope, you pray that you've made enough money during the space of a month to be able to pay people. There were really tough decisions every single day. Being in corporate, you think about doing your one function. If I'm an accountant, I do this thing. If I'm a data capturer, I do this thing, you know? And when I do that thing, I have a contract with my employer that they pay me some money, and it's done. So it's going to be tough if you're in you know, this whole thing of like being an entrepreneur and running your own business. And it's going to suck perpetually until one day you make so much money and you're part of the 2% that make it like big. Or you've made no money, and then at the last minute someone swoops in and pays you a lot of money for this thing that made you no money. And then but you know, it's crap. It's crap. For 98% of the time it's crap. But it's going to feel good. That's the thing. It's going to feel good. You've built your own thing. And
in relation to like you know, selling out and, you know, being bought up by a big corporation, what are your thoughts on that? Would it be a lot better for you to carry on with your startup business, or if, you know, X, Y, and Z huge corporations offering you X amount in dollars, do you take that and run?
So please God, someone offers me a huge amount of money in dollars very, very soon, because I'm gone. And my people will be well looked after if that happens too, so disclaimer, that would happen. But my business, and this is the interesting thing, everybody talks about the glamorous, like, you have this fantastic idea and then like stop everything and just like throw everything in and then like code and build and like implement fast and fail and do this thing, and then the users, and all the users will come, and then once you have all these users, like someone will swoop in and say, hey, you need more money to keep on doing this, and I'll give you a couple of $100,000, and then you can hire some people, and then you keep on doing that thing, and then one day it gets really, really big and you have millions and millions of users, and someone goes, here's all this money, and you go, okay, cool, and I exit it. All right. Okay. 0.0001% of startups end there. Okay? That should not be a reason to not do a startup, but that's the reality. The big exits, the Instagrams. I met Mikey Krieger and the boys from Instagram 2 years ago when I was at South by Southwest. They hadn't sold out yet. They were these pure little souls that were making this. They had this mystery backer, and they were making this amazing product that was of massive value to the industry. There were like 5 people in the company, and they were like, hey, man, we'll never sell out because you know, it's about the users, man, and maybe we'll put advertising on the bottom of it when it becomes really desperate, but we have this investor right now. And when that deal from Facebook hit, the investors said, we're selling. And that's what happened. And look, shame. I'm sure they're really struggling with like the billions of dollars that they made. But again, that's an isolated case. So you've got to know that you're going to fail and fail and fail and fail and fail, and you need to get up and do that again. The other thing to consider, and this is something I wanted to just paint a picture tonight about, because my business is not that kind of business. Yes, I'll exit if a big media company comes along and says, you're very irritating in our lives now. Okay. Here's a lot of money, and then we own you. And I'll go, okay, I'd be all right with that, but it has to be a lot of money, right? My business was built to be a lifestyle startup or a lifestyle business, right? Where essentially So essentially what that means is it was designed to sustain a certain kind of lifestyle. It was designed to do, so after 10 years, we live in a nice house, we drive nice cars, our 2 children go to private schools, right? I have nice clothes. I don't have huge buckets of money, but I live a very comfortable lifestyle. I don't have a boss. I get to collect my kids from school, regardless of when they finish during the course of the day. I get to take as much leave as I want, but again, a clarification in terms of that is understanding what the requirements are from the business so that you don't compromise that. But if nothing huge is going down at the business, I can afford to take a week off, and I go take a week off. These are things that you'll never get to do in the corporate space, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of startup or the kind of business that no one ever talks about. Everybody always talks about this build and implement and innovate and then sell high, and then bam, you're like rich, right? Okay. Consider the other side, because people, like South Africa also needs businesses that just employ 10 people and make sure that those 10 people eat every single month, and they are rewarded and given the creativity in which they can flourish, because maybe the corporate market, corporate space is not where they're meant to be. That's what my business is. But again, that doesn't, and please, it never rules out the concept of an exit. If someone offered me money today, I'd take it.
You're gone.
Absolutely. I'd be out of there. Because you know what, at the end, that's because I've got other stuff in me that I need to build. I'm just too busy running this thing that I've been running for 10 years to go and build the other stuff, right?
What are your thoughts on business collaborations? Like if I'm working from Jersey Hub, for example, and I'm interacting with someone who's in the same industry as me, and we decide this would be an excellent collaboration. However, some collaborations are not necessarily meant to be fruitful. So what are your thoughts on taking on a business partner as you begin your venture?
And taking on a business partner, it's again about understanding what role their business partner is going to play. That's the most important thing. Are they money? In which case you want them to know nothing about your business.
Are there any negative examples you can give us of collaborating and having business partners? Absolutely.
I'll get to them in a sec. But if know what role they're meant to play, and assess that. And often you're just going to make mistakes. I mean, we've got hosts of problems where we've history and lessons we've learned about partnering with people. So what'll happen a lot of the time is you'll be good at one thing, and then it'll need a designer, and it'll need a coder, and it'll need the money, and it'll need all of this kind of stuff. And you put that group together and you roll with it, okay? And no matter how good your due diligence is to start with, right? If one of them's just not going to play ball, one of them's just not going to play ball. People for weeks on end not getting back to you, people not being true to their commitments, right? We were talking earlier this week about that kind of stuff. It's important that the business partners and everybody inside that joint venture actually brings something to the table. But it's impossible to know up front, right? People with the most amazing track records screw you over by just not delivering. It's a fact. Okay, so that's the one thing. Know that that's an absolute eventuality. That said, I think that collaborations are really, really healthy from two perspectives. And again, I'll touch on another one now. But the first one is that whole concept of assembling a group of specialists, like the best UX guy in the world, and the best content guy in the world, and the best financial guy in the world, and all of that kind of stuff. And when you get that all together and it works, that's absolutely great. Sure. And you're never going to have that unless you actually work along that collaboration and you sit down and talk. So always, there's no harm in talking. Have that conversation. In terms of peers in the industry, it's a different kind of collaboration. We've got a lot of competitors for our products in the market. Okay, the difference is I'm comfortable to sit down and speak about intimate details of my product with everyone else, and I just wish they were really comfortable to do the same back. Because, and this is something you'll hear, the rhetoric that goes around with startups over and over and over again is, ideas are a dime a dozen, execution is everything, right? It is, absolutely, all right? Which is why I'm comfortable to tell you guys the inner workings of my business and where we make money and what makes my business cool, and really go down to basic grassroots level, the DNA of the company and where our revenues come from and where our costs are, because there's that magic that happens somewhere along the way, and we arrived at this place, right? And somebody knowing that does not necessarily equip them to steal your business idea and run with it. That's how we execute. That's how we execute. We are experts at executing in that way. But what's important when you sit down with people in the same space as you and you chat, right, is you get introduced to different ideas and different perspectives. So while there's one side of my business that absolutely rocks and we understand how that thing works, we're dealing with two huge other problems in our business right now. All right? That there's companies that have gotten it right and there's companies that haven't gotten it right. There's no blueprint for what we're trying to solve. So that's where those collaborations and discussions are really, really important, And it's have a lot of coffee, have a lot of pizza, talk to a lot of people, right? Fresh eyes on a problem is always really, really useful.
Is there any successful collaboration you can tell us a little bit about?
So the first thing is any collaboration, by definition, will end at some stage. So right now, even though they're slightly bitter and there's a slight bitterness between them and us at the moment because it's a relationship that ended in December, we had a fantastically beneficial relationship for the 4.5 years we had a publication with Incredible Connection. So 4.5 years ago, there were a lot of publications in the market, print publications in the market, and all of them were catering to people that got tech. The problem was 80% of people that were buying tech and using tech knew nothing about tech. So and again, this is like ideas, wow, flash bulb idea, lightning bolt, right? What about a tech mag for people that know nothing about tech, right? Obvious, okay? We've built the business model out, everything else. We shopped it around town, man. We went to the Mail and Guardian. I went back to John Eck. We wanted a big brother to sit behind us and go, cool, let's do this. And every single one of the publishers we met with said, this is a fantastic idea. We've just burnt 10 bar here. We've just burnt 2 bar here. There's no way we're getting into this right now. Sorry, good luck, best of luck. We hope it does well. And what we ended up doing was partnering with Incredible Connection. We built a magazine called Connect. What we wanted them to do is endorse it in front of their clients. So we went, okay, cool. We'll make a free magazine for you every single month that you give 10,000 copies away in your store. And we'll go and make all of the money off the back of it. Because we know what the circulation is, we know who your customer is, we know who your suppliers are, we'll give them a platform to promote their products. They know it's only in your store. They can use all of their funding for your retail chain to do that. And for 4 years, it was massively successful. And we gave Incredible Connection about 8 million Rand a year's worth of free media value and managed to run a business in the process of doing that. So we published 12 issues of a magazine, all about them, every single month. And it cost them nothing for 4 years. And what happened was the idea at the beginning, all right, and what it had become inside their business had changed.
Okay, yes.
So that's an important thing, all right, in terms of these collaborations, right? Make sure that people remain on point in terms of what the whole reason you're doing this is. When I sold that in, the guy that ran Incredible Connection was a guy called Dave Miller. I've still got a lot of respect for Dave. Dave's fantastic. He's now, so Topshop and all of those brands, he now, handles those. He understood that we were building this thing that would be of service to their customers, and it would be this massive amount of marketing value to them, and it would cost them no money a month, and that was rad. By the time the guard had changed and changed and changed and changed and changed in terms of leadership, and the marketing people had changed, they'd lost sight of the reason it needed to exist. And weeks before it ended, we were like under the spotlight about why isn't this making money? And we said it was never supposed to make money for you. It was supposed to make money for me. I'm in business to make money for me, all right? And I was giving you this thing for free that was of massive value to you. And total respect. I can understand how perspectives are different. I'm bitter because that contract's gone. But having said that, it stopped working for them. They'd lost sight of the reason it existed. So know that about collaborations as well. And the lesson from that for me was over that 4-year period was every time the guard changed, I should have repitched.
Yes.
What I did was I relied on an existing contract that was in place, and what we should have done was you should have repitched. We should have walked in and said, hey guys, do you know why this product exists? This is what it's meant to do for you. This is what it's meant to do for us. But we never did. We just relied on the fact that that was understood, and it was never.
So basically you're saying that it's very important on a yearly basis to do something like a situational analysis and do a competitor analysis and say to your client, this is the value proposition, again, of what we're doing on a yearly basis.
Well, don't assume that people understand, that all partners understand. And I would say it's not an annual basis. It's like whenever you meet with them.
Okay.
There's one question in a meeting, stick up your hand and say, does everybody still remember why we're doing this and everything else? And, that for me was that lesson. So that was a collaboration that went bad for us. We hurt quite badly in December when that ended.
Sure. And any other successful collaborations that you guys are working on at the moment?
Let me think.
Possible.
So we do, there's some stuff in the pipeline. There's collaboration between media agencies, a lot of because we understand the tech sector really, really well, and we also understand that that's our strength, so we stick to that, right? But there's agencies that require content inside the tech sector, and they're not necessarily going to put somebody on that. So there's some collaborations that we've got in place there. There's some big collaborations around promotion of our brands and promotion of our staff. In terms of profile, so a lot of the time this content that we create pitches up in a variety of different places, and we do that for the sole purpose of linking it back to this mother brand, which is htxt.africa.
And tell me, how do you cut through all of that noise in terms of like sales and advertising and marketing? Because the thing is that there's just so much going on out there on the landscape. Like, how do you go straight to your target audience and say to them, here, I'm here, this is the value that I'm adding to you, stick with us, you know, in terms of like loyalty and ensuring that the relationship that you have with your target customer, even though they do form, say, 80% of your business and it's only 20% of them, how do you mature that and, you know, continually growing that, considering we are hearing everything from every single angle?
So I'm going to split into two domains because we have two sets of customers, all right? And the one set of customers reads all of our products, okay? So it reads our website, it reads our free monthly mag, on a quarterly basis we produce guides to different products, and most of our stuff is free. Now, they are the product, but they're also the customer, right? So what happens is it's the whole Google thing. If it's for free, chances are you're the customer, right? So Gmail's not free, you're the customer. It's the same thing. What we're doing is we're showing ads in those people's faces, so they're one set of customers, right? And then on the flip side of that, right, we've got people that are funding this whole animal as it goes along, and those are the advertisers. In terms of keeping your reader customer happy and your end user customer happy, and a lot of the businesses I think most of you will build, regardless of whether they're in media or not, if they're apps, sometimes they'll have a revenue stream that'll come from advertising, for example, or whatever. You're going to need to correlate those two. Make sure that the product that is hitting the end user customers always of a really, really high value. So how we do that is we make sure that our editorial people inside our business are focused on satisfying only one person, and that's the reader. Right? They work determinedly to do that. So that's a quality thing. Make sure that the bit that's hitting that customer is of impeccable quality. All right? And we do truly strive for that. We create amazing content. Okay? What that does is it does in turn attract a lot of customers to that, because excellence will always somehow rise to the top. The good stuff always comes to the top, right? At least that's the whole thing on the web. The other side of it, when you're dealing with the advertisers or the guys that are funding this thing, is two things, right? Make sure there's a clear value proposition for them. What a value proposition is, there's a reason for them to spend their money. When they put money in, they get value at the end of the day. So that's really, really important. And the second thing is make sure that everything you're selling them is coherent. So the value proposition for us is we know exactly who our target market is. And we understand our products well enough to go, yes, there's some tech content that goes into this. But the reason we know that those kinds of people that you're trying to reach are reading this is because of the kind of content it is. All right? It's not going to appeal, in the case of Tech Made Easy, it's not going to appeal to IT managers, because we're teaching people how to use Outlook better and how to decide on which smartphone to buy. Those guys know. They just need a specs list, right? That's not what that product is for, right? So it's understanding every single end product, end user, and being able to be coherent about that. And the second thing is having some form of cohesion through your product. So what happens is something relatively unique that we do in our business, I'm just going to use an example, is we have htxt.africa, which is our web property, right? And it's a .africa because one day we want this to be across the whole of Africa, and we're already starting to make moves into that space. But the idea is that's the mothership. All right? And every single thing we do in our business is centered around that one thing. So all of the content we make goes there first. We put that into htxt.africa, and then we repurpose content out of that into all of our other products. So in the case of this, all of the content that is published first to the web but is relevant to people that are tech dummies, we pull out and we collate inside a magazine, and now we've got a second product. Right? The same to do with this. And people that are trying to make the decisions about which apps to buy, or a guide to apps, we take all of that stuff, and often it feeds back in again from the perspective we go, we need to do this thing in the market. How do we tailor the content in this thing so that it makes sense to throw back into the top? So we throw it into the top, it's of value to all of those readers, and then we've got free content out the bottom end.
So that is the conversion.
Yeah, and that also plays quite heavily into your revenue streams. So I mean, apart from the whole thing about consider lifestyle businesses and startups and stuff like that, the other key point I did want to make tonight is around understanding your products, understanding your revenue streams, and understanding that often what you do from a core business perspective does not necessarily associate or correlate with your core revenue streams. So again, like I said, my business, htxt.africa, is it's at the heart of it. It's everything we do is centered around that one product. Every piece of content we make goes in there. But htxt Africa doesn't make us money yet. Okay? It was a big dilemma when we started this thing, because the thing was all of our smaller revenue streams started drifting away, and we had, okay, cool, there's this beautiful thing that we're creating, but it's not making us money yet. So how do you carry on doing that beautiful thing when you're not making any money, right? So therefore we developed a subsidiary revenue streams. We looked at it and we went, there's people that would advertise in this thing. So this thing goes to a whole bunch of retailers every single month. Advertisers advertise in that. This, and there's a variety of other products that we do. And the key is to how that whole model works is the reason we're able to do these really, really cheaply and make them really, really profitable is because our content cost is zero. So in our business, there's this hugely out of balance. There's no equilibrium. We've got this gigantic cost center that makes no money, and we've got these huge revenue centers that make massive amounts of profit, right? Okay, but the thing is they cancel each other out.
Yeah.
The key is to be close enough to your business also that you don't allow that to happen without you knowing it 100% and know. So anybody that at face value looks at our business would kill htxt Africa because it makes them money.
Yeah.
Okay, and go, well, these things, and this is one of the reasons I left Johnny, because I felt that they didn't have the visibility into the products. When they started killing off products, they didn't realize the other products it would impact.
Okay.
So when they killed off magazines, there was a designer that was shared between two magazines, and suddenly now they only had half a designer. Who was paying for the other half a designer, right? So what happened is you shift the whole cost across to that, and then this magazine suddenly no longer profitable. So you kill that one off, and so the house of cards knocks.
Yeah.
So it's about knowing that and going into it completely eyes open. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but being 100% eyes open about the fact that there's a reason this thing makes no money, and there's a reason this thing makes a lot of money, right? And that they meet somewhere in between.
In the middle.
Because you also need to be able to look at parts of your business that aren't making money in earnest and trim them down and put more resource into the ones that are. So.
It's time for the Q&A session. Does anybody have any questions to ask Brett?
I'm Tepo. I have just two questions.
Sure.
The first one is, how would you, let's say, for me, like, how would I determine what my passion is, like, what I would want to, let's say, start something in? Because I've been going through, different sectors, trying to figure out, okay, what would it be that I'd like to do? And then secondly, I'm still a student, and as a young person, let's say I'm looking for some support or some funding, it's kind of difficult for me to actually find that. I know that the government offer, some support and stuff, but it's kind of difficult. So I was wanting to find out, like, what's your take on it, and what advice would you give?
So it's difficult for me to say how you found your passion and the thing that you're going to do, right? It's something that it's something that you enjoy. It's something that you feel you can make a difference with. And a very important thing is it's something that you can make money out of. Because I've been in the situation where I've made lots of money doing something I hate but I was really good at. Right? I've been in the situation where I've made like no money out of something I was really good at and felt really, really passionately about. Those three things are very important to kind of figure out, okay? But you'll feel it. You've got to do some soul searching is the answer. There's no easy answer to that. Try and find something that makes you happy, right? That you can imagine doing for the rest of your life, A. B, something that you can do, all right, and C, something that'll create financial prosperity or at least pay the bills. And if you've got those, you'll manage to narrow it down to something smaller. So for me, marine biology was always a passion, but I ended up in tech, right? And it was maybe because I couldn't be a marine biologist, or maybe I wasn't going to make a lot of money in it. But I forget. But that was one of the career choices I made right at the start. Or maybe I couldn't do it because my parents wouldn't pay to send me to university to do it, right? But those are you'll hit obstacles like that in making that decision. Know that it's not someone's fault or your circumstances. You've just got to think around it, and your ability to think around them will position you strongly as an entrepreneur. So that's the first part. The second part in terms of funding, so if you're a student and you're studying, right, the most expensive resource is time, right? But the thing is, if you're studying and you've got a roof over your head and you're eating, all right, use your spare time as a student to build that thing, all right? And the reason I'm saying that is everybody immediately goes, I've got a rad idea, I know how I'm going to do it, all I need is money now to get it going, okay? Couple of realities about the money thing is money's damn difficult to find, because generally the people that are dishing that money out have worked damn hard for it, all right? And can spot a shakiness in the idea or the execution at 100 paces. They know because they're astute. That's why they're good at business, which is why they have the money today, right? So know that it's difficult to get hold of. The second thing is it comes with massive trade-offs. There's no free rides, right? They are going to get their pound of flesh, all right? Yes, they'll take gambles on new startups, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the numbers. So what will happen is a seed fund will, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but they'll put money into 10 startups and budget on the fact that 6 are going to crash and burn within the first year. They're going to be left with 4. 2 will be dead after the end of the second year, and 2 of them will make enough of a go of it that it goes on to the next phase of funding, that VC steps in, or maybe they get acquired or whatever the case is. But their bottom line is an exit. They want to make money off of that, and they need to make enough money off of those 2 startups that made it so that they can be profitable and make a lot of money back, and then take capital and reinvest it inside that process, because that's their business of making money. Now, the bottom line of that is, all right, everything's a calculated risk, all right? Unless you're one of the 6 that they're prepared to take a gamble on, and there's tons, all right, you're not going to. The guys that end up being those 2 companies that do really, really well, all right, the founders and the individual shareholders that start that business often don't make out all that well. Right? And I'll give you a list of people you can chat to on Twitter or go read their blogs that'll tell you exactly this. Guys that sold to Mixit, guys that sold to Media24, guys that sold to Naspers, DSTV, etc., right? That didn't make out all that well because when they took money, the trade-off was way too big. So here's the thing. Build something that has a lot of value, and once it's got value, if it absolutely needs money in order to evolve to the next level, then take the funding. But so my friend that's in this, in this business explained this to me one day, and again, it's taken me 10 years in this industry to speak to somebody about that kind of thing. But he was saying that they're going to assess what the value of your thing is, all right? And the more hours and the more valuable that thing is, when they put 100 grand into it, for example, right, it's going to dictate what share that they take in it. So if they value that company at $1 million and they put 100 grand in, they take a 10% share. But if you've only got an idea, no revenue rolling into your business, no blueprint, no sketches or wireframes on it. You've got nothing. You've just got an idea, all right? They put 100K into your business. You've got 1% of the business. They own the other 99%. So absolutely wait as long as you possibly can before you take investment. In my example, my business was started with no money. I started with 15,000 Rand, which was enough to buy a computer, a printer, and half a month's worth of 2-minute noodles. Okay. And we still haven't taken any money. The problem is you get 10 years down the line, and because you've never taken any money, no one's prepared to loan you any money. That's when you need it, is when you need to kick it up the next level. But try and wait as long as what you possibly can. So know that it's just time.
My question to you is, you've got this really good idea, or you feel that it's a good idea to you. Now, you're looking for co-founders. What are the characteristics that you want in partnering maybe with someone that you feel that if you can share this idea, this person will actually assist you in taking this idea to the next level? You're obviously looking for like-minded people,
sure,
but you want people that don't think like you as well, because you need to be able to complement each other, and the setup, I think, is very beneficial to a startup. So what would be the best way to go about looking for co-founders with a startup?
So the best way is to use social, to get into the right mailing lists, to get into the right structures. There's a lot of people that are doing exactly the same thing, right? Josie Hub's a physical manifestation of that, right? But there's a lot of different incubators and hubs and stuff like that that are springing up, okay? But a lot of the stuff's taking place virtually, Okay, get into the right news groups, get into the right mailing lists that are about the topic matter of the startup you want to be in, right? And during that process of just being involved in that, you'll find other people that are also sitting inside a place where they want to break out of that and they want to do something. So I'm going to move over because I'm leading here because of the camera. So that's how you'll make that network, all right? The important thing is, I think this is key, is the whole shared vision thing. The person that you have as the founder has got to feel as passionately about that thing as what you do. So if your mission is to like develop an app that saves the whales, all right, someone's got to like, saving the whales has got to be the most important thing, all right, in their life. They've got to feel that burning and that passion also. But at the same time, you want them to be in a space where they bring a completely different skill set to the mix. Or maybe they think differently from you, but don't choose somebody that's going to shoot the idea down, because you'll spend your whole life convincing them of it. All right. So Adam is standing in the back of the room, our business partner. Adam feels as strongly about what we're trying to do with htxt Africa as what I do. And we're both like, well, I'd like to think that he died trying. I know I died trying, right? But that's important. But we think very differently and we have very different skill sets. And that's the other thing. So shared vision, different skill sets, different thinking. And how you find those people is just start branching out. Get into news groups, get onto social networks. Attend startups, stuff like this, all right? Drink a lot of coffee, have a lot of conversations.
And have a lot of noodles.
Here we go.
Do you have any suggestions how I can remain consistent and have the drive when I meet the phase of failure?
When you, sorry?
When I meet the phase of failure, how do you have any suggestions how can I remain consistent?
It is, it's massively tough. In terms of your consistency, if you're an expert in what you do, you'll know. So, like I said, have this unyielding commitment to doing the absolute best you can at every single job that you take or every single thing that you build. I know it sounds really, really lame, but that's the fact. You really have to care about what the end product looks like. In terms of remaining motivated, so I'll tell you what did it for me. Again, it's not something that would make sense to like a lot of people. But so people asked me right in the beginning, because I started out as a freelancer. So imagine it, me, a laptop, all right, work coming in, and you've got to get up in the morning, all right, change out of your pajamas. Sometimes you stay in your pajamas, but you have to muster the motivation to get up in the morning, sit down at your laptop and do work, okay? Or if the work's not magically there, you've got to go out and find it, right? What did it for me was the first month I didn't eat, where there was no money there wasn't money in the bank. I couldn't go shopping to buy food because there wasn't any money, because I hadn't worked that month, all right? And I hadn't worked that month because of either I didn't have the motivation to get out of bed in the morning and do it, or I hadn't, chicken and egg thing, the first part gone out and sold. So that's what kept me motivated, was that I had to survive. I just kicked my job up. I just resigned from an extremely well-paying job. It's easier if you get fired or retrenched, because at least then the company needs to do something. When you resign, the money just stops, all right? Like dead at the end of the month. It's the last you're going to get out of that company, right? So I needed to do something. And the first month was crap. And then the second month, I was really in touch with the fact that I needed to go out and sell and do this. And I didn't have too many options. So does it answer your question? Cool. Also, hey, the thing for me that keeps me going every single time is to turn around and look at this thing that I've built and go, I built that. I know it's a small thing, but for me it's a really, really big thing that every single month I get to turn around and say, I made this thing that magically is like more than 10 years old now and still going, So, cool. Yeah.
I just wanted to associate with shooting and freelancing. How do you maintain quality and not give off the message that is of superior quality?
It's an interesting question. I think let's start with how we make, so we have this unyielding commitment to quality, all right? We don't accept anything less from the people that are contributing towards it. Okay, so our staff, we drive really, really hard to create the absolute best content that they can for those products that are free. Okay, the reason we do that is we're in touch with the fact that the only way we make sure that audience picks the magazine up every month and resonates really, really well with that, okay, is by making sure the content's of a high quality. The fact that people pick the magazine up and read it cover to cover every single month, and we get feedback from them on how useful it was in their lives, allows us to go back to our advertisers, which is our revenue stream, and say, the reason we have this kind of response in the market is because our quality is really high. And if you trace it back, they pay for a captive audience. We create a captive audience through high quality content. Did I answer that in terms of how we, because if we start breaking it down, it starts falling to pieces. Let Adam also jump in on this quickly.
I'll just jump in on that one quickly. I mean, one of the things, our ultimate ambition with the company is to go htxt, and that is going to be the default for the technology.
I had a chat with a friend of mine that's a professional academic in San Francisco a while back. And she was like, damn it, everyone has a startup today. This is complete bullshit. Everyone has a startup. What the hell? Is everybody trying to be cool? And the thing is, all right, theoretically, the moment you actually go profitable, you're no longer a startup. You're now a business, okay? And it depends on which hat you're wearing. So my business is 10 years old, and I still call it a startup. Yes, we're profitable. Don't worry, we're profitable. But it's about a DNA thing. So I think how you define a startup is, like I said, it's not profitable yet, or it's really young, all right? And it's maybe looking for an investor, or it maybe hasn't figured out what its role in life is yet. It's still knocking around a couple of decent ideas and playing around with execution and stuff, all right? The reason I still call us a startup, and again, most of, the only answers I can give will come out of personal experience and personal opinion on stuff, right, is the oldest product in our company right now, and bearing in mind my company is 10 years old, is a website called htxt.africa. htxt.africa last month had its 12-month anniversary. It's 1 year old, right? So again, my business is still in startup phase from the perspective that we've had really successful ventures that have reached their logical conclusion, and we've had to reinvent ourselves over and over again. And I think that's maybe what I would classify as a startup, is when you've got to invent stuff. So when we started the website, everything that followed and needed to support the website from a revenue perspective came after that. So our oldest product is 12 months old, yet we have a company that's 10 years old.
What I wanted to, according to the perception of the end user, the reader, most people really know what they pay for, and here you are doing a high quality product for free. How do you maintain the perception that it's worth value?
I think they get that when they read it. It's that simple. It's like, and if they don't resonate with it, here's the reality, right? We put 10,000 of these out to market, and we serve as many page impressions as our little web server will allow us to do every single month, right? And believe me, at least in the concept of this, that's free, okay? There's 100,000 people a month that could potentially do this. We put 10,000 out into market. It goes to a variety of retailers, the Dion Wired, Matrix Warehouse, BT Games, goes to some schools, all right? Without fail, within 1 week of us putting the product into market, we're getting phone calls from those branches going, we need more copies. So again, if somebody picks it up and they go, this doesn't work for me, it's rad. There's 100 guys standing behind you that want it for free also. So it's that. And I mean, attaching a price tag to something does not necessarily mean it's quality, right? It's...
The other thing I'd add to that as well is what I was saying earlier about understanding your audience, and people consume media differently. I mean, the first thing that we realised when we launched this for 3 years was, well, we're giving away all these stories that we write every day on the website for free anyway. People, that mechanism of people buying magazines, it's not going to last long. We could have tried to get it into CNA, but it's a business model that's fundamentally broken. we would have taken 2 years to grow the magazine to be profitable. And by the end of that stage, nobody was like buying magazines anymore. So I think that's, to me, the future of publishing, because people aren't really paying magazines.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the other thing. So I don't know how many media people are in the room, but you keep on hearing the thing about print being dead. Okay, trust me, it's definitely not dead. Okay, it's just the web broke print, because what the web did was it made content free. All right, and out of all of the shining examples there are of publishers that have put websites up with pay gates, I think there's 2 in the history of that entire equation that have managed to make it work. All right, and one of them, I think, removed it anyway because their readers hated them so much for it. So the reality is, the reason web broke it was it made content free, and culture made content free. Now again, people are not going to go and pay for a print magazine because it's print, because the other thing that's shaken out of this whole equation is people have realized that print isn't really that expensive anymore. Okay, so.
Evening, Brad. My name
How's
is
it?
Andrew.
How's it, Andrew?
I've got 2 questions for you. First one is, how did you guys actually get to print your first publication, since it's a free, mag? And the second one is, I forgot, but you can answer the first one.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the other question.
So the first, okay, we're that good, is the answer. No, I'm kidding. So, we know our clients really, really well. We understand the sector really, really well. And when I say we're that good, we have amazing salespeople, all right? Because we've got track record and we've been around for 10 years, what we've had the ability to do is say, we haven't screwed anybody over a 10-year period. We've done a really, really good job wherever it was possible, all right? When we launch a new product, we've therefore got the ability, and it's quite a bold sell, but we've got the ability to go in and say, we're making this thing. Okay, in order for us to make this thing, we need support. This is, okay, so what I'm explaining now is bootstrapping, right? So selling a product that you haven't actually shown anyone yet. You kind of go, here are all the mock-ups, what it looks like, you know what the content looks like on the website. It's going to be the same as that, but it's just going to be in print. And this is how we're going to distribute it. And if you come on board to start with, our normal rate card price is X. All right, we'll give you this rate, the special rate, but then you need to sign up for 6 months and it'll expire after this time, and it's all of the basic mechanics of doing that. But essentially what we did was we pre-sold the space inside the magazine, all right? And like Adam says, because all of the content was already available on the website, we could tell people what was going to be in the magazine, right? We developed a look and feel for it. We'd done all of the work up front, and the only reason we were able to do that was because we were doing it anyway. We just took it and we pivoted it slightly, and the difference between it is htxt is all of this content. We picked all of the content out of it that resonates to that target market. We gave it a look and we turned it into a print mag. And then we went out to the market and we said, please fund this, and then they did.
Okay, so basically you had a hard copy that you presented
No.
all your potential.
No. We had some look and feel. Literally, we had a logo, we had what a cover could look like. We'd marked up one feature. Every magazine's got about 5 or 6 features. We'd marked up one review. We'd done like one news story, and we've said, here's an example of a feature, here's an example of a review, here's an example of a news story, here's an example of the cover. And then what we did off the back of that was we said, what we're putting into the first issue is this list of stories.
Okay, and my second question. So what were some of the measurement tools that you guys took to your potential advertisers? Was it just the numbers you had from the internet or from the site? I mean, what did you present to?
So remember that we had Connect before, all right? So we were kind of lucky in that we had a lot of contracts, advertising contracts that were running during that. And when our partner decided to cut that short, there were 6 insertions or 3 insertions left. So again, and it's all about how you sell and position stuff, right? And again, we went out to our advertisers and we said, we're really sad about the fact that this thing came to an end, but never fear, we'll give you a place to put those extra 6 insertions that you've already committed to. So we converted that business across. Sorry, I forget what the question was, just quickly. Oh, so the measurement tools. In print, it's really, really easy. Okay, the web makes you honest. This is a cool thing about the web, right? A lot of my competitors in the market are still coming to terms with this. In print, there's plenty places to hide. I've been running a print business, like a print-based publishing business for 10 years. And the nice thing is, all you've got to say is, I make this thing, and I put it into 10,000 people's hands every single month. And all I've got to do in order to prove that is show them a copy of my print bill, which shows that I'm printing 10,000 copies, all right, and do one of two things, all right? There's a thing called an ABC certificate, which means that there's an auditor that has to look at that and corroborate your claim, all right? We're too young as a magazine to have one of those, so right now what we do is we send some copies to Matrix, some copies to BT Games, some copies to Dion Wired, etc. We've got letters from each of them saying that we receive 2,500 copies a month, and they sell out, and they get taken within a week. You present all of those to the advertiser, and then you're able to prove that in the print context. In the web, you've just got to show them your Google Analytics. And there, and this is the thing that I simultaneously love and hate about it, there's no room to move, right? The stats don't lie, all right? It's horrible seeing 10,000 less page impressions month on month, but they happen, right? It's awesome seeing them grow by 40,000 page impressions. It sucks when you write an amazing story and suddenly the US takes your site over and your South African readership dilutes. But the point is, it's all swings and roundabouts. You share that information freely with your advertisers and your business partners, okay? And you know, it'll all work itself out in the end. We also can't hide because now there's a South African thing called effective measure. You have to be a member of effective measure in order for an agency to give you the time of day. So people don't even ask us for our analytics anymore. They've got it. They know. The cool thing is we also know what all of our competitors are doing, so that's right. So if everyone knows what everyone else is doing, then it's cool. Then it's an even keel, level playing field. How's it?
And I told you earlier, so I'm starting a digital media agency in Osaka. And I was just curious to know, like, what are some of the signs that it's time to close shop for like a startup business, apart from maybe not getting a return on investment? Is there, obviously, going to get back what you put in? Is there any other?
In terms of when to know, when to like abandon something and walk away?
Close shop, before you start chasing the wind, basically. Is there anything else, obviously, apart from the obvious?
So I know what the academic answer is. It's like when you run out of cash and there's absolutely no way to carry on, right? And your spirit's broken, right? Okay, like I said, like right at the beginning, I said I'm either stupid or just really, really tenacious and resilient, right? Because you're going to get knocked down every single day. That's what happens, right? I had a crap day on Friday. I took a half day. I couldn't be in the office anymore on Friday because it was just, I had the most amazing week, and then Friday was just really crap. There were two horrible things that happened. But you have to get up and keep on going. And when you either run out of money and you can't eat anymore and there's an opportunity for you to go somewhere else and eat, then it's time to shut it down, right? Or when your spirit's broken. It's a skill that after 10 years I still haven't gotten right. Okay, because there's, you know, over the years, money I shouldn't have plowed back into this business, that I should have walked away.
Yeah.
But you keep on going and then you make it back. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, so you're saying something you could have been passionate about could also, you know, get old after a while. Something like, hey, this idea is getting old, I'm done.
Yeah, so again, you have to remember that you're an entrepreneur at the center of that universe. Okay, you're not just the one that started it and you stay in it because it continues to make you money. You actually give a crap about it every single day.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, if you get bored, find someone else to run it. Step away. At that point, it's gonna implode. If you're bored or you don't feel it anymore, it's over. It's just a matter of time until it's over. So, cool.
Hi.
How's it?
In web publishing, when you actually start like selling ad space, how big do you have to be? Like in terms of traffic, like what are clients like advertisers looking for? What numbers are they looking for? Like for instance, at what traffic did you start selling ads online?
So it's a really, really tough question, and there's a number of ways to look at it, and I think it's 100% related to how good your ad sales skills are, because you've got to convince people to part with money, right?
So you can sell like pretty much any traffic as long as you...
Absolutely. So here's the thing. So you've got to know how to sell it. If you've got a really, really small traffic, but you're very, very niche, right, then you're selling quality, not quantity. And that's your angle. Okay, so you've got to say, my content is so specific and so unique in what it does in the market, it might not attract the biggest audience, but it attracts that audience in a massively loyal fashion. The reason I know this is, so I do a weekly podcast called the ZA Tech Show. It very rarely comes out on time anymore because I've got a really busy life and we have to do panelists and stuff like that. But that only gets 6,500 listens a week. All right, it's fairly good for a podcast, but it's also not all that amazing for a podcast that's the longest running podcast in South Africa, bar none, right? We sell quality with that. We say we know the content is not for everybody. It's for people that are really into tech, right? They come there, and these are the people that really care about tech. So therefore, your number of your CPM is much higher. Your cost per 1,000 impressions is much higher there than what it would be on a site that deals with very generic tech, or even like a media twin, like a News 24, that attracts people from all kind of walks of life, right? So that's what you're doing there. The moment you start scaling your traffic up on the other end, right, then you have to accept the fact that you possibly can't really sell a niche publication anymore. But when you're doing millions of impressions a month, it's okay for your CPM to be lower, right? In terms of when to sell, all right, I would say it depends entirely. The moment somebody will pay for the page impressions. It's the moment you're of value to somebody, so somebody goes, that's a value, I will pay X for it. But if your page impressions are really low to start with, don't try and divulge too much of that. Just kind of try and talk about your brand and your social graph and the fact that you've got all of these people following you on Twitter and Facebook, and they're all really, really into this topic. And if you tweet something or put a piece of content out, it goes places. Speak about influence. So, but I'm happy to take that offline. If I'll share what we do, and you can share what you do, and I can help you. So so right now we're monetizing. We're a year in. We would have loved to have been much bigger by now than what we are, but we do 140,000 page impressions a month, 96,000 uniques. It would be really, really cool if we had the ability to take that 96,000 uniques and make every unique 4 page impressions. Then we'd be smiling. In terms of uniques, when we stack up, we're in the same realm as some of the bigger sites in South Africa. We just don't have the same page impression numbers. But I think that comes, we're also the youngest, so we're like a year old. But that's what we do every single month. And we've got a modest growth level, incremental growth level month to month. But we have months where we had a month where we were doing 80, and the next month we did 120. Content's strange like that. It just, sometimes it spreads, sometimes it doesn't. We've given up analyzing it, right? And we just because it just makes us want to drink. So, to answer your question. Yeah. But I'm happy to, so if anybody wants a card or wants to ping ideas at me or whatever, I'm not the person that'll put you in contact with a funder or whatever the case is, but if you ask me a question that I can answer, I'll be more than happy to answer and initiate a dialogue, meet you for a coffee, whatever. Cool.
Hi, Brian.
How's it?
My name is Vusi. I'm a co-founder of a tech startup. It's a startup from an outsider's perspective, but from inside, it's a very big company.
Sure. Yeah, there's big problems, right?
I want to ask, during the early days of the company, when you already had a team of employees, were there days when you couldn't make payrolls, and how did you deal with that?
What do you mean, were there days? It was like, dude, that's like 3 months ago. Are you joking? Seriously? I'm like 100% authentic. Don't worry, Adam. I have this one under control. He's very worried but it's a reality. When you're building stuff, again, so the fact that our oldest product in our business now is a year old means that we're back in startup phase. We're a year old as a company because our oldest product and our oldest revenue stream is a year old, right? That happens all the time, right? You need to have the discipline to start putting money away when you can and eat the 2-minute noodles for as long as you can. I don't have that discipline, but you should absolutely try and do that. It happens all the time. And can I tell you what the crappiest thing about all of it is? So now I'm going to like sell against startups. Go get corporate jobs, everyone. Don't do a startup, all right? You carry it 100% on your own. There's no one else that carries that with you. It's freaking lonely. You can tell people about your problems. Nobody will help you solve them. Nobody can fix that, okay? It's yours to carry 100%, okay? The cool thing about being the one that carries all of that on your shoulders is when times are good, you can turn around to your staff and say, screw all of you. Because I'm the one that didn't eat for 2 months last year. And it's true. I took 10 salaries, not 12 salaries last year. Hey? You can turn around and say, that's the reason I get to take the money out of the company right now. But know that doesn't happen all that often. Okay. No, it's damn tough. All right. You just got to keep on soldiering on. But yeah, the important thing is try and find a network of other entrepreneurs that are sharing the same problems. It helps to tell other people about it. So when I found out that a lot of my mates that had made it really, really big were still like shitting off every single month to make payroll, I felt marginally better about my situation. So,
are there any last comments? We're about to close the Q&A session now. Nothing. Thank you guys for joining us at Startup Grind tonight. Thank you, Brett, for being such a chatty and well-informed guest. Really appreciate it. Thanks. I just want to mention this. Please do follow us on Twitter at Startup Grind Johannesburg. And also the next event is on the 27th of August. Speaking to the ladies, since next month it's Women's Month, I do encourage you guys to really come. We are going big. For the ladies, I cannot stress how big we are going for the ladies. So the next event is on the 27th of August. So thanks for having us and listening to our little fireside chat with Brett Haggard of htxt. Thanks, guys. Startup Grind Johannesburg is being sponsored by Google for Entrepreneurs, VNS 24/7, VMage Media, Sir Juice, Red Bull, and Josie Hub.